Welcome to the show. Here's my dad.
On this episode of the Infant Adoption Guide podcast, we talk with Simon Ben, an adult adoptee and a coach. He shares his story and how we can work together to help our adoptees thrive. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Infant Adoption Guide podcast. My name is Tim Elder. I'm a dad of 3 through infant adoption. This is the show where you get the inspiration, the resources, stories, and hope to help you go on that adventure that you're thinking about 24/7. That's building your family through adoption. So thank you for joining me today. You know, as a dad of 3 through infant adoption, I know from experience it can get overwhelming as you're trying to adopt. You're trying to find that best and right adoption agency to help you. Well, I want to help cut through that overwhelm. Not only to help you learn how and where to find infant adoption agencies, but then choose the right one you can trust all the way through your journey to adopt. So I've created this brand new guide. It's called How to Find the Right Adoption Agency in 4 Steps. It's a free guide to you and just walks you through where to find the right adoption agencies, how to evaluate them, how to choose the right one for you. So just go to findmyadoptionagency.com and you'll see how to get that free guide. Findmyadoptionagency.com. Get started getting the help you need. All right, let's get into the interview with Simon right now. All right, our guest on the show today is Simon Ben. He is an adoptee and a coach who empowers adoptive parents to empower their children to thrive, which is what we're going to get into today on the show. He was adopted at a young age, and his life went pretty well until something happened later in life he's going to talk about that led to some intense anger about being unloved and not good enough, and he got into personal development to find happiness. He sold his business. He became a coach. He started working with kids back in 2013, inspiring them to be happy, confident, and to make their dreams come true. And he's here to share his story and to share what he's learned with us today. So welcome, Simon, to the show. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you, Tim. It's lovely to see you. When we had a prelim chat, I don't know, a month or so ago, I just thought you're a great guy, and I'd love spending time with you. Looking forward to spending some time with you today. So, yeah.
Thank you. And, likewise.
We can share some stuff that's going to be of use to your listeners. So, because that's what it's all about.
Absolutely, yes. And I've had folks periodically share with me that they'd love to hear from an adult adoptee. So I'm so excited to have you on to share your story and to share your experiences, because it's not all peaches and cream. And after we adopt, when we adopt as hopeful adoptive families, when you're going into it, adoption doesn't end when that child's placed with you or at finalization. That's the beginning. And that's what we're talking about today, is helping our children, empowering them and helping them to thrive. And I love what you're doing with kids and helping parents now too. So let's get into that, and just tell us what's your adoption story? What was life for you growing up, and what challenges you may have faced as an adoptee growing up?
So I was adopted at about 4 or 5 weeks old. I was told very early. I was talking to my mum about this yesterday, and she said that they told me before they adopted my sister. So my sister is just under 2 years younger than me. So I must have known at about 1.5, just before I was 2. And they told me in a really sweet way. So they told me with a picture book. So it's a picture book about a story about a couple that fell in love and got married, and then their life, they didn't feel that their home was complete, their life was complete, their family was complete until they adopted a child. Now, I don't remember being read that book. Obviously, I wasn't reading because I was 1.5 or whatever. I wasn't reading, but they read that to me with a picture book. I don't remember that event, but I do remember the book because it was in my childhood, my wardrobe, my cupboard, in my bookcase, and I was told really young, early, and I've seen a lot of perceived wisdom now that says tell kids later. Obviously, they told me earlier. In my opinion, I think that's better because then it doesn't. None of us like shocks.
Right.
Okay. COVID has come as a shock.
Yeah.
Adults don't like shock. We don't like shock. So the earlier we can tell, the earlier tell. Anyway, so my adoption went well. My ups and downs. Everybody goes through ups and downs, right? And life is up and down, and our moods go up and down. So yeah, my childhood went well. I went into the family business. Actually, a lot of my mental anguish, should we say, was around business. I went into the family business. I found that really tough. And then when success was very elusive, and then when it finally arrived, it was like a hollow victory, and it didn't mean anything to me. I've never been particularly motivated by making money, but I'd always been very worried about making a loss. I'd always been very scared about failure, at the back of my mind. So my business life was actually the biggest cause of concerns in my 30s, shall we say. And then, as I say, this success, we had a good year, and it was a really hollow victory. And I think a lot of people that comes true. So you interview sports stars being interviewed, and they've just won the gold medal, or they've just won the NBA, or they've just won the Super Bowl, and they say things like it hasn't really sunk in yet. And for me, that's actually about the fact that the thought about success, the expectation of success hasn't been lived up to. That's what happened to me in business. So business success didn't make me happy, was kind of the realization that I came to. And about that time, I discovered that my teddy bear that I'd had from being a kid was actually a gift from my birth mother. And I thought, the first time I heard that, I thought, that's a little bit strange. But then a couple of weeks later, I was relating the story to a new friend of mine. This was a course leader on a communication course I had this massive eruption of anger. I felt that my birth mother had rejected me. She didn't love me. This is a show going out without any profanity, so I won't put any profanity. I won't tell you word for word what I said, but believe you me, it was like really very. I'd never felt that anger before. I'd never thought that I was so rejected before. But that's what kind of kickstarted my journey, and it's 14 years ago. And that eventually led me to, so I learned some stuff and decided I wanted to share that with the rest of the world. I kept my adoption stuff out of it, actually, until fairly recently. And now I'm bringing the whole of my story to bear to empower others. So, yeah, giving a kind of like an adult adoptee perspective on what kids are going through. Because my life has gone from light, everything was going okay, to dark when I was like in the dark, or the fog, some people call it the fog, adoptee fog, to brilliant bright. My life is really brilliant bright at the moment. I consider myself very lucky that my life is that bright. Okay. But because I've been through all phases, light, dark, and ultra bright, I can see the difference between the two. And that's what's the luckiest thing for me, because there's a lot of people in the dark, and hopefully I can shed a message, help a little, share my message and share my story, what I've learned, to help them towards that lighter, taking life a little bit lighter. That's what I'm all about. Helping adoptive parents with that perspective, so that they can understand some of the darkness that their kids might go through, and then they can guide them to the light. And also working with adult adoptees as well, who are suffering like I did when I was going through that tough phase. So yeah, that's what my life is, and that's what my passion is. And
how did you get through that darkness? I mean, you almost felt like falling off a cliff or something, or getting hit by a car or something. It sounded like you just get hit so fast and so hard, and that anger just kind of sent you over. How did you pull yourself up out of all that anger?
Okay, so by seeing things more clearly. Right? So I'm like you. I'm a how-to guy. How do I do this, right? So how do I change the world? how do I get to be on more great podcasts like you? And how can we work together to help more adoptive parents and adoptees? I'm a how-to guy, right? So and we live in a world obsessed with the how-tos and the processes and the strategies, right? But what actually changes our world for us is when we see something different, right? So when we have that insight, when we have that epiphany or epiphanet, because sometimes people get a little bit hung up on epiphanies, they get epiphany envy. My insight wasn't as big as that guy's. I want what he had, So the how-to is an insight when we realize that the way that we've seen the world has been wrong. So it's the insights that change the world. That's why I'm a coach. I ask questions. If I ask you a question, it's got a little question mark on the end. It's got a little hook. And the hook draws out the person's truth, hopefully, out of them. And they see a new truth. So they see that if they're an adoptee, they see that there is light. And then they just get that little glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. And that's what propels them to change. The change comes from the new idea, not from the strategy. If change came from strategies, right, I would always get 8 hours kip. I wouldn't drink a couple of bottles of beer most nights. I would drink a lot less caffeine, drink only water. I wouldn't have little muffin tops or love handles just above my jeans, where I'm a little bit fat from COVID. That we would if the how-tos were the answer, then there would be no childhood obesity. There'd be no COVID, probably. There'd be a lot less COVID. It's about I call this hanging out at the bus stop for insights. And the great news, right, for all your listeners is that's what you're doing right now. It is a metaphorical bus stop. It is a metaphorical bus stop. I can't guarantee when your listeners are going to have an insight. Right? Some of them have already had some insights already. Some of them might have some in a couple of minutes. Some might not have no insights, whatever. If I could make all my points and all my questions and all my hooks land for your listeners, believe me, I would. But I can't, because there's no such thing as a second-hand insight. We have to have them for ourselves. So how do we change? How do we change stuff? Well, we change stuff by developing new knowledge, having insights, and then developing the skills to take what we've learned and share that with our kids, for example.
Yeah.
So I'm coaching. Yeah. So short answer, no. Very short question, long answer.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, you got to have that internal perspective. And yeah, you're right. It's not just about reading something and automatically or understanding it and knowing something more about yourself. You mentioned, though, I believe I saw it on your website, that you had stumbled across an adoption book that kind of made you stumble. And maybe that was in the middle of when you went from light to fog to brilliant light, and in that fog state, is that when you had this book that...
That's right. I've given you 3 phases to simplify my life, but pretty much all my days are like that, rather than 54 years. So what actually happened was I thought that my consciousness had really, really evolved, and I was in the light already. Yeah. So I thought I was at 80 watts, and 80 watts was where it was at. Right. And then I read this book, and this book sent me back into the dark. So it sent me back down from 80 watts to like 20 watts on a light bulb. And I stayed there. I bumped along there for a while until I realized that what I'd read in that book was totally wrong. When you got a soccer ball, a ball, and you put it in a swimming pool, and you plunge it down under the level of the swimming water, and then it bounces back up. and it bounces far higher. You held it. We held it on the surface of the pool, and we pushed it down 6 inches, but it bounces back up like 2 foot. Yeah, that's how I came up.
Okay.
That's how I came up. So it took me down. I went down from 80 watts to 20 watts. And then I bounced back up to about 150. Believing the contents of the book had sent me from 80 watts to 20 watts, or from the surface of the water to 6 inches below it, and then realizing it bounced back up to.
What about that book that made you go down?
Well, here's the thing, right? I realized that I was attributing, I'm not sure I have the word, normal human emotions to being adopted. So let's take one example. So rejection. I felt really rejected. In that anger, remember, I'd never felt that anger before, but in that moment, I felt that anger of rejection, right? And I believed that. I believed my feeling. I believed my feeling was true, and I believed it was all that was right, that my birth mother had rejected me. Okay. And then I read it a bit later on. I read it in the book. Adoptees don't like rejection. But Tim, it's like, you're an adopted parent. You're not adopted yourself.
Right.
Do you like being rejected?
No, never.
No. Nobody likes being rejected.
So it's not an adoptee thing.
It's not an adoptee thing. Adoptees, they may feel it a little bit more than others, but there's a little phrase, correlation isn't causation. Just because it's common doesn't mean it's causal. Because if it was causal, I would feel adopted all the time. I've been adopted all my life. I was adopted for 5 weeks old. I've 5 weeks old. Sorry. So my mood has gone up and down. My dislike of rejection has gone up and down. If it was causal, then it would be the same. It wouldn't vary. That's one example of it's kind of like a summary of what I saw eventually in that I had fallen for my own beliefs, and then when I saw the truth in that, then it kind of it set me free. And obviously, until it didn't set me free again. I fall for the rubbish in my head all the time, but it hurts me less when I do it now.
So when you read that book, it took you down, not using the metaphor, a little bit below the surface again. Did it take some time? How much time did it take you to just process this?
Yeah.
And
so this is the thing, okay. We live in a world where we are conditioned that change takes time. Everybody tells us, it takes time. Well, it's a bit like I'm back to the bus again here, right? The bus may take a long time to travel from the last stop, but it always arrives in an instant. Change happens in an instant. It may just take a long time for that instant to come. Does that make sense?
So I'm just practical. I'm so practical. I'm sorry. I'm processing in my head. So as you're moving along, I'm just trying to put a timeline in my head. I guess maybe that's my hang up.
Okay.
You get the book, so you're going down the road. Your anger. You get the book. It pushes you down a little further. You process your change. Your this truth. The fallacy really of the book.
Yeah, that's a good word, fallacy.
And it shoots you up. Did it feel like, you said change comes in an instant, so did you feel like it was an instant when you just went shooting up out of that water? You were the soccer ball that went shooting up out of the water?
I felt it, yeah.
Yeah. And at that moment, and then you start feeling like this is my bright light moment. Like this is another bright light moment. It's all it is really is your mood goes up and down during the day, yeah? Right. So I'm just talking about a little bit more. So if your mood, gotcha,
everybody's listening to the podcast, right? So I'm doing like a graph sign, like a heartbeat monitor when you're watching ER. If you ever watched ER,
Oh, yeah.
So it's going like that, right? So it's my ups and downs that I'm describing are approximately 6 inches, right? And that's how our mood is. It goes up and down by 6 inches. All I'm talking about here really is that my mood was going up and down by about 6 foot, about 6 inches. So I'm just talking about more extreme moods because I'm in this space where my moods are a lot more variable. So my highs are higher and my lows are lower, but I come back from the lows a lot faster and I am less bothered. I'm less bothered about the lows because I don't trust the lows anymore.
Gotcha. And how did that move you to going to, you know what, I'm not going to do my business, my family business anymore, and I want to be a coach? I mean, was that a transformation thing? Yeah. Okay.
That was an insight as well. So, my business going back 11 years ago, it had been really tough. I'd had some of my learnings, if you like, some of my jumps in consciousness. My moods were generally getting a lot better, but I couldn't get the business to do what I wanted to do. So I decided that I had to get out of it. And then it was like I had no idea what I was going to do. And I was talking to one of my coaches, and I just came out with the idea. It was a new thing. It was a new insight. There was a change that happened in the moment. And I just said, she's called Liz, this lady. I said, just Liz, I want your job. I didn't want her job. I just wanted to do the same job as her. I didn't want to change her. That was 2010. So just over 11 years ago. Yeah.
And so you started working with kids, and it wasn't adoptees necessarily. It was kids in school, and you can see it on your website. Yeah.
I did a couple of things before. So my first venture was kind of small business owners, and then my next venture was big businesses, and then those two didn't work out. So then I started on a kids. I had this idea of working with kids, writing a kids book about ups and downs,
right?
About happiness and sadness and stuff. So then I started working in schools and inspiring kids to make their dreams come true. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a tip now, that's more practical. What I found works with kids is a lot of parents say, well, I've tried to talk to my child about confidence or self-esteem and it didn't go anywhere, right? So it's a tricky conversation. Like, obviously not all of them have that. If things are going okay, they don't ring me up, do they? Clearly, they want to solve their own problem. But they say, I don't know how to have the conversation, right? So the kids' lives are run by other people's agendas. They're run by at school, they're run by the principal and the curriculum that's set down by the government and all that sort of stuff. And at home, it's set by the parent. Obviously, that's the way it works. So the best way to actually get your child to open up or get talking about, I just call it mindset for shorthand, or confidence, is to actually ask them what they want. So the model I came up with pretty quickly, again, in a flash of insight, was to ask the kids in the classroom, okay, what's your dream? Okay. What do you need to do to make your dream come true? Okay. How do you need to be? How do you need to feel? And how do you need to think to make that dream come true? And then we're into confidence and positivity. You see what I mean? We're using the child's drivers, their motivation, to engage them in a conversation, rather than saying the flip side. Now, I don't know, would anybody ever do this? We're a little bit worried about your confidence, Simon. Well, I'm going to shut right down. So there's something wrong with me. You're saying that I'm God, I've got all this stuff going on already. Now you tell me that you want to talk to me about the conference. I really don't want to talk about that. I really don't want to talk about that, Dad. That's how I would have been, I think, if I'd been 10, not 54. Do you know what I mean? So that was my model, my model in that I came up with in schools. And here's a critical thing, right? The critical thing. I came up with that model as an insight. I didn't know that that's what I was going to do. It came to me as like an idea out of the blue, like all the time, right? And people say, well, how do I have more of those? Well, that's what you've been doing all your life. You have raised your kids, Tim. You've learned by experience. That's how we learn. We learn by experience, but we're unsure. And there's all these people on the internet saying, are you unsure of your parenting skills? Come on my free webinar, and I will tell you the 7 steps to get your child to behave properly. And we think, hallelujah. Sorry, I'm not a religious guy. We think, yes, this guy knows how I feel. I'm going to sign up and going to go to the course. And then you go on the webinar and say, yeah, well, I'm going to lay these steps out for you. But if you really want to know what I know, then you're going to have to pay me $9.99, and I will buy this ebook. That's how we're kind of like, we're programmed. We're looking for the how-tos. We're looking for the practical stuff. And, I love the fact that you're a practical guy. I'm a practical guy too. The most practical stuff is the most effective stuff. And the most effective stuff happens from a new insight. Even the insights come from insights, not from how-tos. And we stop spending all our time trying to Google our way to our kids' happiness. It ain't going to work. Talking to a mum, I was working with a mum last week. I was talking to her and her husband as well yesterday. She said, well, yeah, and I need to find time to do this. Yes. Yeah, we learn by experience, and learning takes time. Experience takes time.
That's great. I love you. The little soundbite I just caught out of there was, you can't Google your way to your kids' happiness. That's awesome. You need to put that on your website. That's a great quote.
Okay.
But I want to circle back to your...
Googling. Yeah. Stop Googling. You found me by Google, right? You can't Google your way to your happiness. Give me a call and we'll talk about happiness and where it comes from, because that's the key thing here. Yeah. Right? Yep. This is the key thing. I'm laughing. Mm-hmm. But we're also raised, or I was, on the idea that happiness comes from outsiders. So we have miserable weather. Yeah. Or in my case, Simon, when you hit your £100,000 profit target and you buy your Porsche, you will be happy. Guess what? It didn't work. And I'd already learned that lesson. I'd had a Lotus before. And I'd forgotten the lesson that I'd learned. I'm not... I may know stuff, but I'm still I'm still human. I still make mistakes.
Well, I love that you created this activity book. It's called Jack Cherry and the Juicer.
Jack Cherry and the Juicer, yeah. So it's all about the truth that feelings come from thoughts. Yeah, they don't come from the outside world. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you go on Simon's website, and we'll share the link, you'll see the video. It's just a 3-minute video, but the kids, just them talking about this activity book, because he's in the classroom with them and showing them this activity book. They're working through it together, and just hearing their thoughts come out of working through the book is just really cool. You got to watch the video. 3 minutes. We'll put it in the link. But that kind of stuff is what changes, kids, and keeps their happiness going. Because kids, like you said, it comes from within. They have the happiness already within them, but we're beating them down as they get older, and us as adults don't even realize we're doing it at times.
Yeah.
So I love that you're doing that. And let's jump into talking about, though, specifically adoptees now. So you're starting to work with and coach adoptees and adopters, as you call them, or adoptive parents.
Yeah, adoptive parents. Yeah, some people get hung up on the terminology. I'm sorry if
I don't either. No, I don't either. I'm just using the term because I know you use the term adopters, and that's cool. I don't mind that term either. But I want to ask you about how you work with them, and specifically I want to call it a method, maybe, called Thrive, which is the T is transformation, the H is healing, the R is resilience, the I is identity, the V is vision, and the E is enjoyment.
Yeah.
So I want you to explain like that process, how you help people through that process.
Okay. So we're talking. So transformation really is about change. Yeah. So when I realized that I wasn't traumatized, okay, I released the adoption trauma. So that's like an insight. That's the thing. Logical explanations of that won't really do it justice. Healing, well, people think that there are emotional wounds, and that's what I thought, right? And so I talked about healing, repairing emotional wounds. Well, actually, really, that's about realizing that, the emotional wounds that you had were just feelings, and they don't say anything about you. So that's the healing piece. Resilience, well, this is an easier one to talk about for me. Most people say what doesn't kill us makes us stronger, right? You heard that saying. It's like going to the gym and lifting a lot of weights, bench pressing 160 pounds or whatever it is, and then you can bench press 180. So you've been through a trauma, you've been through some hardship, you've been through some tough times, whatever that is, whether that's to do with adoption, whatever it is in your life, you've been a marital breakup or whatever, you've been through it, and it hasn't killed you, it's made you stronger, like going to the gym. Well, that's not how I see it. That's how I used to see it. But actually, it has made you stronger by realizing how strong you always were. You just hadn't realized it. Yeah. So that's what the resilience piece is all about. Identity. This is a bit more philosophical. I could give you a flip answer in 2 sentences, but it might not land. So most people think of identity as in their name, right? Or their culture or their heritage. But none of those are who we truly are. Because, for example, our identity, I've been David Anthony Flower, and now I'm Simon Jonathan Bank. So if I've been 2, I can't actually be either of those 2. So body, people on the body, well, our bodies change over time. So an identity is forever, isn't it? So it's about, I use different metaphors for this, but some people will call that spirit, for example, our nature. It's not our personality either, because our personality changes. So the identity piece is essentially what the psychologists would call the unconditioned soul, right? I don't use that sort of language. I call it like, so my favorite metaphor of all time is not one of mine, it's somebody that I borrowed off a mentor. It's the metaphor of the fact that, we're diamonds. We're all diamonds. We're all born perfect. Okay. And then we go through life and let's call it manure, because this is a family show. Manure happens. So we go through hardship. Like we get bullied at school, or we get adopted and we lose our biological mum, and it's a bit tough or whatever, or it isn't. Right? And then so manure happens, and then we also get lots of manure in our head, like I had. So we think that we're not good enough. Well, so for me, the identity piece is the diamond that's kind of obscured by the manure. So that's the identity.
Yeah.
Vision for the future. That's about what you want out of life, and that's the motivational stuff. So what is it that you want? What's your dream? What do you need to do to make your dream come true? How do you need to be to make your dream come true? How do you need to feel? How do you need to think, and who? And it leads back to the identity piece, because most people's thoughts are, I'm not good enough, because they've lost sight of the diamond in the manure. Okay. And enjoying life is all about being, not waiting for when. So most of us as adults, we're waiting Kids are better at this than us, actually. Most of us as adults are waiting till we get our mortgage paid off to be happy, or till we get a promotion to be happy, or for when we go on holiday to be happy. We're waiting for when. Whereas, one of my main mentors, Liz and Richard, talk about being a creator rather than a waiter. So a waiter waits for the outside circumstances to change before they release the happiness inside them. Whereas you can actually create. We can worry about if we can worry about the future, we can enjoy our future before it happens. So that's the kind of enjoyment.
Contentment. Yes.
Sorry?
Contentment, being happy with where you are and what you have right now.
Yeah. So we can worry all we want about COVID, but it isn't going to make the situation better. But if we say that to somebody, they'll say, yeah. But then I said this to somebody the other week, and she said, yes, yeah. And then a split second later, she had to hit me with a bad news COVID story. I thought, you got what I said intellectually, but you didn't get it. You didn't get it in your head, but you didn't get it in your heart. You didn't get it in your bones. And that's another thing. Maybe you touched on this earlier on, where most of us think understanding is an intellectual exercise. It's about a yes or a no, right? So, but if that was true, there'd be nobody would be smoking, would they? Because everybody knows. I smoked for a long while. I knew intellectually it was a bad idea, but I didn't know in my bones. And when I saw something in my bones, that's when I stopped. So intellectual knowledge does us know. Well, intellectual knowledge isn't knowledge because it doesn't move us forward. What happens is when we get something deep, a bit more profound, a bit more in our bones.
That's good stuff. It's a thought process. So as we are hoping to adopt, and then after we adopt, it's taking time to think, I guess, is really what it is. I think a lot of us just, like you said, I think travel on through life, waiting for the next outside thing to affect us. And we're just kind of bobbing along the water, and something comes and pokes us down under the water. And then we don't know how to come back up. Maybe we've come out and float to the top of the water, but we're still always at the top of the water. I'm using your metaphor of the soccer ball, sorry.
Yeah.
Whereas...
So the insight.
Yeah, the insight...
The insight is what you don't know how. Like when you're under the water,
right.
when you're in the darkness, you can't see the light. So when you're in the darkness, you can't see the way out. When you see light at the end of the tunnel, that's what draws you.
Mm-hmm.
That's your escape route. That's your way out of it. Just want to touch on something that I saw on a practical level about this stuff. Bearing in mind what you just said, right? So I saw it was a message in an adoption group, right? And it said, me and my partner are thinking about adopting, but we've seen how traumatized all of you people are in this group, right? Because it was mainly adult adoptees in this group. It wasn't a group for adoptive parents. It was a group for adult adoptees, and this person had come into the group to see what was going on. I don't know whether we should adopt anymore. Okay. So that I thought that, asking for an opinion, well, how can you make that? You have to make decisions up for yourself. You have to, we're not talking about babies wanting their bums wiping, right? Here's the truth. And all the people started saying underneath, well, my adoption was great, so do it. Then the next one was saying, my adoption was terrible, so don't do it. You're just saying, well, and so I put on saying it depends, right? But and then I put a warning on. Most people who have had fantastic adoptions aren't in this group. So it's like it's like it would be like going to learn about learning. It would be like you're in a room full of 120 people, entrepreneurs that have gone bankrupt, and asking them whether you should set up your business or not, right? The people that ask the right people, and also ask the right people, but it's just an opinion. You can't act. Should I Tim, do you think I should adopt? Well, somebody asks us a question, we're trying to help them, but something as deep as that. And then somebody put, if you're having second thoughts, then don't do it. Do you know, I don't know, I think this was in the UK, but we're living in this state where we think, well, shouldn't I? I mean, it's really helpless. Anyway, I'm ranting a little bit, but I'm sorry, I don't know why.
No, I think it's a very good point, and I think that's why people that I've ran into seek opinions or stories of adult adoptees, because they do get a little bit scared. If you've never adopted before and you don't know really what it's like, you get scared. Like, what's this child going to do? What am I going to run into as I raise this child? And what kind of deep wounds are they going to have that I have to help them fix? And is it even something I'm supposed to do because of that?
Well, here's the thing, you see. Believing I was wounded was the thing that sent me down. Mm-hmm. So you asked me about that, right? And I used I said there's a few examples, and I went with the rejection thing, okay? But and there's a reason I went for that, because the book is called Primal Wound, right? So I didn't want to go near that because I respect this lady, right? But the chapter on the book the first chapter on the book that I'm writing at the moment for adoptees is fundamentally unwoundable. The human spirit is unwoundable. We just don't see that. That's the big thing that I saw, right? And it's a bit esoteric, so I went with the rejection thing because it's a little bit easier, right? Spirit is unwoundable, in my opinion. And that's what I've seen. And that's the biggest that's the biggest thing that's brought the light into my life.
Yeah, and you really need to finish that book. Because there's a lot of us that need to read that. We do read The Primal Wound, and we do get this scared feeling like, goodness, my kids are going to be just wounded their whole lives, and how are we going to ever help them through this? So that's
what happened to me.
Yeah. So your book is going to be a huge, huge thing for us to read. Yeah.
That's what sent me below the water. Mm-hmm. That's why I bounced back. I'm tingling now, Tim. I'm tingling because that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. Because that's what propelled me. That's the insight that I had, that I was unwoundable. And I can try and explain it, like, I can give a little bit more logic on it that might help some people that, don't go with the woo-woo stuff, right? The spiritual is immaterial. It's not material. Material, I'm pointing at my arm. My arm can be wounded. Yeah. She's using a physical metaphor for something that is emotional, something that is intangible. It's not the truth. Our emotions go up and down, but they are just abstract. They're just a feeling. And we're spirit. We can bounce through that.
So when does your book come out?
Yeah. Well,
I'll put the pressure on you.
Soon.
Yeah.
Soon.
Well,
I've just restructured it all. It's mainly for adoptees, and I'm going to write one for adopters as well.
Well, that's great. And as we wrap up this interview, what's coming down the road is you've got a book coming out for adoptees, and you're going to start working on a book for adopters or adoptive parents. Yep.
Adopters,
yep.
Adoptive parents, yeah.
So is your story going to be wrapped up in this book?
The adoptee one will have more of my story, but it's more about the learning. Because all that matters to me is impact, right? If we don't have an impact, we're doing it.
Right.
So I'm restructuring it for impact, and then the one down the line will be for adopters, adoptive parents, adoptive families, and that will be less a little bit about my story, but it'll be more about the empowerment stuff. So it'll be more about the Thrive model. And
so you're in the UK, but you work with people everywhere. Yes.
I work with people all over the world: New Zealand, America, Australia, Canada, Egypt.
Wow, that's awesome. How do folks find you, and what's the best way
So
to
they
contact
find me
you?
on simonben.co.uk. So Ben's got two N's on it in the surname. Simon, Ben, Benn. And then we've got these funny simonben.com. Somebody keeps on trying to sell it to me, but I don't believe he's really for true. So yeah, it's Simon it's .co.uk.
Yeah,
That's like a UK domain name.
sure.
I'm not going to be scammed by this guy who wants to sell me this
Not at all.
domain name. I don't even know if he can. It's his to sell.
I don't think you need it. We
Don't
got
want
the
to waste.
link. We'll put the link in the show notes so everybody will just, I mean, you don't need to memorize it. Just click on the link in the show notes. You give free consultations, yes?
Yeah,
Confidential chat, I think is what you call them.
yeah. It's a chat. Yeah.
And what is that about? Is that just
Well, it's about what's going on for the mum or the dad, or if it's an adult adoptee, what's going on for them, and whether they, you know, whether they think I can help them.
right? Okay.
It's a chemistry meeting, really.
Okay.
It's the chemistry right between the two. And am I saying stuff that leads them to impact, to insights? If I don't create any insights, I don't create any change. If I don't create any change, then their world isn't going to change. So it's for me to have a back and forth with them,
Awesome.
see if they can have some insights.
And on your website, you have at the top, there's something you call the A to Z of children's well-being, and it's not just for adoptees; it's for any children. But it's 26 videos and transcripts of how you answer questions all about kids, right?
Yeah. So it takes different things like bullying and confidence, self-esteem, different things, happiness, A to Z. Yeah, A to Z, as you say in the States. Yeah.
Good stuff. Really good stuff there too. So, wow, I just the things that you've bring out. I mean, I'm such a practical guy. I am pretty black and white, but you make me think, which is a good thing. As an adoptive parent, especially, I mean, you make me think and know what to look for in my kids, how to help them realize they are a diamond. I love that metaphor of diamond, and they can just
Yeah.
get manure shoveled onto them, or maybe even coming inside of their own head. And they need to get rid of that. They're the diamond. They're always that diamond, and they can't forget
Yeah.
that. So I love that metaphor.
So what I mean by insight, okay, is them seeing the diamond for themselves. Because if somebody tells me, like my mum said to me, right, the other day, she said, "You're the best thing that ever happened to us. You and your sister, the best thing that ever happened to us." Did that land for me? Well, I'd love to say, if my mum's listening, I'd love to say yes, but it didn't really. I didn't. I felt a warm glow, but it wasn't like, oh yeah, I really get that. It didn't land for me, not really deeply. I don't know why, but it's just one of those things. So that's what I mean by insight is, we can tell our kids the diamonds, but they've got to see it for themselves. That's what an insight is, and that's what an epiphany is. That's what an epiphanet is. It's about, and that's where the kind of there's a mixture between the knowledge and the skills, right? So the skills is about bringing that out, bringing that out to them, helping them see that. But I have to say that, yeah, I've got you thinking, but I want to take it away from me, okay? Because what every parent, adoptive parents and non-adoptive parents, right? What you've got going for you, right, is your love for your kids. Your love is going to get you through, right? Your love is going to propel you down the learning curve. That's what gets you going. All I'm here to do is give you a bit of knowledge and skills and kind of help you along the way a little bit, with some of the stuff that I've learned. But without the love, anything that I say is absolutely nothing's going to land whatsoever. So I don't know whether love is a secret weapon at all. We're weaponizing love, ladies and gentlemen, here. But it is a secret thing. That's a secret sauce. That's what's going to get you through. That's what gets everybody through. If that lands for your audience, that love will get them through. Their love for their kids will get them through. Because there isn't any alternative.
Right.
You've got to get through it. You're going to get through it. And love's going to get you through it. So
that's awesome. Well, I thank you so much for everything you've given us today, and the thoughts and inspiration. Just good, really good stuff. I invite everybody to go to his website. It's simonben.co.uk. Well, thank you so much for all the stuff you shared with us today and your story. You got a very unique perspective that, and I can't wait for your book to come out. We'll certainly put it on a resources page. Let me know so I can get a copy too, because I can't wait to read it. So thanks so much for coming on the show today,
Cool.
Simon.
Cheers. Thank you.
All right. Great interview today, man. I hope you got a lot out of today's show. I think it's so important to think about how to help your kids thrive as adoptees. And Simon really did a great job helping us think today, really helping me think. And I'm so thankful to have Simon on the show to share his thoughts, his feelings, his stories. It's just great stuff. So 2 things I want you to do today. One is subscribe to this podcast. Go to iTunes, Stitcher, any Spotify, whatever your favorite player is. And I have links at infiniteadoptionguide.com under the podcast page. But I really appreciate it if you go on there, subscribe to the show so you don't miss anything. And if you there, leave a review, that would be awesome too. Number 2, join our adoption community, our Infinite Adoption Guide community. So at infiniteadoptionguide.com, there's various places you can enter your first name and email address, and you're in. You and I are going to connect. We'll work together on your adoption adventure and connect with other people that are on the same boat and in the same place. Because I'm here for you. I've been in your shoes. I want you to adopt. I want you to reach your dream. There's lots of great podcasts, articles, guides, and resources at infiniteadoptionguide.com. And I'm working on something even more amazing I'm super excited about. I don't think it's ever been done before in the infinite adoption world. I want to just tease you with that. I can't wait to share it with you soon. Anyway, all the highlights, links that we talked about in today's show are going to be on the show notes at infiniteadoptionguide.com/82, as this is episode number 82. And thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you. Until next time, you are in my thoughts, in my prayers as you go on the journey to build your family through infinite adoption. God bless.
Thanks for listening to my dad.